Our next talk, Dr. Bilezikian is going to come back and give us a year in review for what's been happening in osteoporosis.
About 6 or 7 years ago, Dr. Lawrence Royce, who was really one of the pioneers in our field, passed away. He used to give a year in review at ASBMR where he would read all 1,500 abstracts and in 50 minutes give you about the ASBMR meeting. I was asked to take over for him, and of course no one could take over for him, but I do it every year at ASBMR with Dr. Roland Barone, who covers the basic science. So this talk is not that talk. I changed it, of course, a lot. But the idea is to give you a sense of where this field is with the latest ideas. And I'm going to broaden the talk a little bit to cover other metabolic bone diseases, not just osteoporosis. So don't be daunted by this slide, but we are going to cover a lot. And I think by the end, you're going to be completely up to date. Okay? So let's start with the diagnosis of osteoporosis. This is becoming a hot topic. We know how to diagnose osteoporosis, don't we? We do a DEXA, and the T-score is less than minus 2.5, and that is it. Well, if you look at the data with regard to the T-score definition of osteoporosis, this is one of the big epidemiology studies, the so-called Rotterdam study. In green and in blue, yellow are those individuals who either have normal or osteopenic T-scores, and in white are those who have osteoporosis by T-score. And with regard to fractures, less than 50% of these individuals have a densitometric diagnosis of osteoporosis with regard to non-vertebral fractures. If you look at hip fractures, well, a little bit more than half have osteoporosis, but a healthy number do not by bone density. And if you look at men in non-vertebral fractures, the vast majority of men do not have osteoporosis by the T-score, and also that pertains to hip fracture. Now, you could say to me, well, they have a fracture, a fragility fracture, that is the definition of osteoporosis. And that is true, except that the payors in this country expect the T-score to be less than minus 2.5, despite the fact that most osteoporotic fractures occur at T-scores that are not osteoporotic. So, why do we rely only on the T-score for the diagnosis of osteoporosis when most osteoporotic fractures occur at non-osteoporotic T-scores? It does make the point that there are other clinical risk factors besides the T-score that factor into our discussion of fracture risk. And these are obviously this is the list that has been identified by FRAX and most other risk assessment tools to help us give more information about fracture risk than we can get by the bone density alone. Dr. Ethel Cyrus, who is in my group, Etch and I have been working together, believe it or not, for about 40 years, has made a big point of this. And at ASBMR last year, and in 2 papers, is proposing that the clinical diagnosis of osteoporosis should be based upon any one of the following: the osteoporotic fracture, the T-score, and or a risk assessment tool such as FRAX with treatment thresholds. This is a rather radical proposal, and one that we would like to propose as the way and the most rational way to make the diagnosis of osteoporosis. It permits, the FRAX permits a therapeutic rationale in those who do not have osteoporosis by T-score or who have not sustained an osteoporotic fractures, guidelines based on clinical risk factors that are independent of bone density.